Biological neural network overview. In this module, we will overview a biological neural network and the components of the biological neural networks, which are neurons. How these neurons are connected to each other, how they are functioning, how they are accepting signals, and how they are transmitting signals from one neuron to other neuron in the whole network, and then they are showing some output to the respective stimulus in the biological systems. A typical neuron, as shown on the next slide, is composed of three main components or three parts of it. It has a cell body, which is the main center of the neuron. It has dendrites, and it has an axon. These are the main components which sum up and making a regular or normal, usual neuron in the nervous system. A single neuron usually has a large number of dendrites, but a neuron usually has a single axon. This is a diagrammatic representation of a motor neuron in the nervous system, which are used for the transmitting of impulses towards or away from the brain or the spinal cord. This part of the neuron is called as, this is the main center, which makes the cell body, or called as the soma, and this part also it includes as the nucleus is also over here. And now this center has been connected with many different branched dendrites, and these dendrites are responsible for receiving signals from other neurons. So a single neuron can receive signals from many other neurons at the same time. This center, which is called as the cell body, each sum up all the information being received from multiple dendrites, it's accumulated and summing up all the information over here. And if they are large enough, then it is passing a single, producing a single output, and passing that output to this axon. Now the axon is single, but the ends of the axon are also branched, so a single output can be passed on to multiple other neurons in the nervous system. Now this is just the structure of a single neuron. In the nervous system, millions and billions of neurons are connected to each other with trillions of connections. Now how they are connected to each other, the connection of the neuron, one neuron with other neuron, is not a direct process. They are connected with each other through a gap, and that gap is called as a synapse. So there is a gap. For example, if there is another neuron over here, so there will be a small gap over here. So the information is not directly passing from one neuron to the other neuron in the form of an impulse in the biological system, because when it will pass a signal from here to here, the shape and the structure and the form of the signal will get changed, and here they will produce some neurotransmitters, and then these neurotransmitters will be entered over here, and it receives a signal from this one and from this one and from multiple to these different neurons, and then summing up these multiple inputs into a single one output, and then distributing into many other neurons in the nervous system. So it means that each neuron is basically receiving synaptic signals from many different neurons in the system. Synaptic signals are basically, they are not just in the form of a current, because whenever the signal is inside the neuron, it is in the form of a current, but if it is when it reaches the synapse, it transforms into a chemical system, and that's called a chemical or neurotransmitter, it is to be called. So each neuron is receiving synaptic signals from many different types of neurons through its different dendrites, and signal to other neurons are transmitted by the axon. Each neuron is transmitting its signal to many other neurons through its axon, branched axon. A typical synapse is therefore a contact between two closely two neighboring neurons. So there is a connection between them, and that's called a synapse. So synapse in a biological system is just a gap which is used for the transmission of signal from one neuron to the other neuron. Synaptic signals which are received by the neurons in the biological system, these signals may be excitatory signals, or they may be inhibitory signals. By excitatory signals, we mean that the signal is for excitation of something, and inhibitory signals are those signals which are produced for the inhibition of some process. So they are able to transmit both types of signal, either they are excitatory signals, or they are inhibitory signals. If the net excitation received by a neuron is large enough for a short period of time, then the cell body of the neuron generates a specific pulse, and that pulse is called as the action potential. So it means that if the cell body receives enough information, enough signals over a short period of time, then it produces an action potential, and the action potential originates at the soma, distributed or propagated from the soma through the axon of that neuron into many different neighboring neurons in the system. Now the output which was produced by this neuron is produced by the neuron basically, and is based on both the spatial and temporal properties of the input signal. So the output is basically based upon both the spatial and temporal properties of the input signal. Now this is the way through which a biological neuron or a natural neuron in the nervous system, the living organism has. They are acting, they are receiving signals, and they are propagating signals, and they are showing responses, and are going to solve the problem what they are facing with. And now the artificial neural networks, they are being inspired by this philosophy, and they are using the same principles, more or less the same principle. They are using similar terminologies they are using, and are used for specialized algorithms. They are used for solving different types of complex problems.